We have some major breaking news as Richard Childress and RCR are contemplating legal action against Steve Phelps and Brian Hertz. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel and welcome back to the video. As I just said a second ago, we got some pretty massive major breaking news early this afternoon as there is a potential possibility that Richard Childress and RCR could be looking to sue and provide legal action against Steve Phelps and Brian Hertz over some comments that were made over the weekend and that were surfaced in regards to the 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports lawsuit. Here's a statement from Richard Childress. Richard Childress Racing statement. RCR and Rich Childress are deeply disappointed by the insensitive and defamatory statements made about Mr. Childress and recently surfaced text messages between NASCAR executives Steve Phelps and Brian Hertz. These comments reflect the way certain NASCAR executives have historically viewed and treated many team owners like Mr. Childress, who have devoted their lives to strengthening the sport for its fans, its sponsors, and all who compete in it. RCR and Rich Childress are equally disappointed for the NASCAR fans, with whom Mr. Childress closely identifies given his humble and hard-working background. Mr. Childress and the organization will issue no further statements regarding these or other defamatory text messages that have recently surfaced, as legal action is being contemplated and discussed with legal counsel. We kind of talked about these comments on the channel over the weekend, but there were some really unfortunate messages that did surface over the weekend. Now, it is noted by, I believe it was by Matt Weaver and other reporters in the industry as well, that these comments were basically made, that before these comments were made, he did reach out, according to what people said. People did reach out about certain things that were going on and certain things that were made and certain statements that were made as well. But let's talk about the statements and the messages that did surface in the text chain. Going back to some text from October, I think it was 2023. I agree. What Steve Phelps says, I agree with you. Did you give them some sense of how bad things are out there? Childress needs to be taken out back and flogged. He's a stupid redneck who owes his entire fortune to NASCAR. Brian Herb says, I didn't go there, kept it high level for now. Ongoing conversations, figuring out where all the puzzle pieces land, etc. But happy to do so in future conversations. Just didn't know if now was the time to provide a dose of reality or not. Steve Phelps continues on by saying 10-4. How's it going thus far? Brian Herb says, getting a little testy. OD's doing a great job on the hot seat, that being Steve O'Donnell, but there's a lot of we'll discuss internally, want to get together in a room, etc. Steve Phelps says, these guys are short-sighted and self-serving. Childress is an idiot. If they don't like the state of sport, sell your charter and get out. Brian Herb says Newmark and Custer, Steve Newmark and Joe Custer, by the way, both thought the TV level set into the future was a good idea. We can add that to the tactical next steps. Continuing on, Steve Phelps says, insult to Newmark about it yesterday. Told him we would do a good media deal this go around, but I was terrified about the next one, particularly if we don't come together. I also spoke to Justin Marks about it. I spoke to the existing media mark and how challenging it is, but was confident that we would end up in a good place. Maybe not what we had originally planned, but in the ballpark. Continuing on, Steve Phelps says, I assume the meeting has concluded. Brian Herb says, Newmark did talk about your conversations. He thought it was a really insightful. Glad he spoke with Justin as well. Brian Herbst also said, and yes, meeting wrap. Just doing post-meeting catch-ups. More text messages also surfaced wall by saying, did I mention Childress was an idiot? If he's that angry, and apparently he is, sign your charter extension and sell. He is not smart. Is a dinosaur and a malcontent. He's worth a couple $100 million, every dollar associated with NASCAR in some fashion. Total ass clown. Also, like I said, he continues to say he needs to take it back out and flog. He's a stupid redneck who owes his entire fortune in NASCAR. Those are the statements that were released. And there were also some other messages surfaced between, I believe, Jeff Dickerson, I believe Scott Miller, or an unnamed executive, I'm pretty sure, where Jeff Dickerson actually called Richard Childress basically a cuck for hanging out with Donald Trump at the time. Now, these statements are not shocking and surprising. Now, look, I've had my own issues with Richard Childress in the past and the way he's handled things over the years, but there's no reason to be disrespecting someone like Richard Childress. Even if you disagree with some of the ways that Richard Childress has handled things in certain situations, and you don't understand Steve Phelps' frustration maybe a little bit. This actually came from after Richard Childress went on a SiriusXM NASCAR radio criticizing the media deal, criticizing the money coming into the sport, and criticizing other things when he spoke to Dave Moody on SiriusXM NASCAR radio. There were conversations that were had after, and Steve Phelps is worth noting, like I mentioned mentioned earlier, that Steve Phelps basically said he was frustrated at the time with Richard Childress at that point. But going back to the respect side of things, the reason that a lot of people like myself were really frustrated when all this came out over the weekend, it's like there's been rumors about this in the industry for a long time. There's been a lot of rumors and speculation that NASCAR has been saying things behind the back. Imagine basically saying that to one of the long-term owners. And think about this, NASCAR saying, oh, Richard Childress owes everything to us. I think it's actually kind of the opposite if we're going to be honest, because if it wasn't for Dale Earnhardt and Richard Childress, I don't know if the sport currently at the moment would be where it was when the sport grew. Dale Earnhardt and Richard Childress are two of the big reasons why this sport grew the way it did and grew to the levels that it exactly went. And NASCAR owes a lot more to them than I think they owe. And I think this whole thing, it's a two-way street where both parties need to be on the side. The teams need NASCAR and NASCAR needs the things. It can't be a one-way street. It's got to be a two-sided street. And I also find these comments extremely disrespectful. And I know a lot of people are going to be probably coming into comments and saying, but you've said some things that have been critical of Richard Childress. And I absolutely have said some things about Richard Childress that I've been a little critical of over the years. The difference is, I am a fan, and most people do not care about what I have to say or other people on the internet have to say. These are higher up executives in the sport. This is the commissioner of NASCAR, and at the time, the president of NASCAR. This is the vice president of communications in NASCAR. Steve O'Donnell, people like Ben Kennedy in these text messages that came out, calling out the SRX as well. This kind of stuff is just uncalled for to say, especially, and I don't blame Richard Childress, and I don't blame him for being upset about these comments of service, even though Steve Phelps did call to apologize for him. I just think it's unexcusable for higher-ups in the sport to be talking bad about people running your show and running into sport. Because the difference is between communications and some things that have been said by 2311 Front Row, people like that, they're employees. They're not the people that are working as higher-ups in the sport. These are the higher-ups and executives in the sports. And to me, I just find it to be completely inexcusable and unacceptable for people in the industry, higher-ups for that matter, to act like this. Because what this also shows is that imagine for a second as well, imagine if what they're thinking about the fans. Because if they're talking like this to normal people, I can't imagine what they're saying about us normal people that are fans. That's the big point right here. They're talking bad about certain individuals in the industry, like Richard Childress. Imagine what they're thinking about the fans that are watching a sport on a week-by-week basis. So I am not shocked by this and surprised. Do I think that Rich Childress will pursue legal action? I don't know, to be honest, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's legal action that comes into play and we got more lawsuits coming. And I think as time progresses and goes on throughout the remainder of this lawsuit, I think there's more there's going to be a big fallout that's going to happen. And I'm worried about the long-term future of the sport, because what if Richard Childress decides to leave? Richard Childress has been working in the sport for over 40 years. He's been in this, in fact, he's been in the sport since 1969. He got the opportunity almost 60 years ago to be in the sport and built an empire. And yeah, NASCAR helped them. There's no denying that. But at the same time, Richard Childress has done a lot for the sport over the years. And I think NASCAR should be thanking Richard Childress and Dale Earnhardt a lot more than they basically have thanked they should really be thanking Richard Childress at this point for helping get the sport on track. I think they should absolutely be doing that. And I think NASCAR was in the wrong. And I'm not surprised to see that Richard Childress is threatening legal action. We might have more lawsuits coming, folks. So keep an update on that, because it's going to get crazier as we get closer to the trial, and we're less than 10 days away from the trial happening. So, that's your today's special breaking news report on Rich Childress potentially bringing legal action and suing NASCAR. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notifications on, so if when a video does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support me on Patreon as well. Let's go below that and comment your thoughts below on today's episode. Do you think that Rich Childress will actually sue NASCAR and Steve Phelps and Brian Herbst over the comments that were made? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And what are your thoughts about all the lawsuit stuff that's been going on? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Tomorrow on the channel, we're going to have a video probably talking about Rich Childress Racing or other stuff potentially. Might be doing 10 drivers who are on the hot seat going into 2026. Wednesday, we're going to have a NASCAR news video wrapping up all the lawsuit conversations, some silly season news, some news on AM Racing with Sigma Performance Services, talk about the new NHRA news around the John Force Racing and Austin Prock as well. Some other stuff potentially about Tony Stewart, probably some call racing news down the road. And as we get close to the trial with 23 Front Row, we're probably going to cover that as as well. We got content coming on people like Haley Deegan, Shaman Gisborne, Carl Edwards, Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch, Bolos, Ross Chastain, Sheldon Creed, Sam Mayer, Frankie Muniz, Kyle Larson, Chase Lay, Ryan Priest, Brad Keselowski, Cletus Avon, Dodge Ram, Tony Stewart, Casey Kane, Will Brown, Brian Finney, Cam Waters, Robbie Gordon, all the good stuff we'll talk about on the channel in the coming days and coming weeks as well. And Connor's Oil's channel, Source Junior Motorsports too. So anyways, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode. I'll see you guys next time for more great, awesome NASCAR content and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.